Alright guys, so de-dollarization is ramping up once again. Countries all over the world, they are starting to think twice about using the dollar. A week ago, we heard Trump making an unthinkable threat to the world. If you dare to leave, we will punish you and cut your country away from the US economy.
And we will keep the US dollar as the world's reserve currency, and it is currently under major siege. Many countries are leaving the dollar. They're not going to leave the dollar with me. I'll say, you leave the dollar. You're not doing business with the United States because we're going to put 100% tariff on your goods. Sir, we would like very much to get back to the dollar immediately. Thank you very much.
In 2025, the US could very well impose this 100% tariff on the world that ditches the US dollar. Now, this is wild, and Trump can very well do it without Congress approval. Using Section 301, the same card used on China, tariffs can be applied to the world very easily as well. He can weaponize the US consumer market. Now, what's frightening is how Trump doesn't realize this action will raise domestic inflation. It will hurt consumers back in America. He still believes tariffs are taxes on China and other countries.
We're going to be a tariff nation. It's not going to be a cost to you. It's going to be a cost to another country. I heard Kamala the other day, Comrade Kamala, she said, oh, if you do that, he's raising your taxes. No, no, no. I'm not raising your taxes. I'm raising China and all of these countries in Asia and all over the world, including the European Union, by the way, which is one of the most egregious.
Personally, I find Trump very entertaining, but this is wow, it's absolutely frightening. You would think that countries would start running back to the dollar, but we are starting to see the exact opposite. Saudi Arabia is defying the US by going public. The Saudi Minister of Industry just dropped a bombshell. The kingdom is happy to accept the petro yuan to build closer ties with China. In other words, Saudi Arabia wants Chinese RMB to settle their oil trades with Beijing. And this is what happens when you weaponize the dollar too much. This is an accumulation of all the events over the past few years. We saw massive deficit spending plus the confiscation of Russia's frozen assets, and this has reduced trust in the value of the dollar and the safety of the reserve currency. The Saudi minister said this in Hong Kong. The kingdom is open to new ideas and doesn't want to mix politics with commerce. This goes beyond oil. Saudi Arabia wants the help of China to transition their economy away from oil and gas. That is more important than bowing down to Washington and sticking to the petrodollar agreement forever. Now, firstly, we must understand how integrated the economies of China and Saudi Arabia are. As we said before, this goes beyond oil for yuan. It's a big economic pivot towards Beijing away from Washington. Saudi Arabia has many investments in China. To no one's surprise, they are mainly oil and gas and petrochemical refineries. The Saudis are setting up shop in China to secure trade with their biggest energy consumer. Beijing also benefits because their interests are tied with Saudi Arabia, making them harder to get sanctioned. But if you look at Chinese money in Saudi Arabia, it's very well diversified, from industrial plants to renewable power to EV factories. Working with China is essential to achieve MBS goal of a diversified economy. China's goal isn't to displace the dollar as the world reserve currency. It's too much of a burden. They are earning a ton of money and their surplus of Western currencies is simply enormous. In June this year, China's trade surplus hit $100 billion. That's just in 1 month, and it'll easily surpass $1 trillion a year. China still needs dollars to manage their local currency and to invest overseas. What's more important and realistic is to de-dollarize their international trade. The Saudis taking yuan for oil is going to accelerate this. It's tacit support for China's economy. The moment Saudi Arabia embarks on a petro-yuan plan, the rest of the Middle East, the rest of OPEC, they'll fall in line as well. China's share of world trade has tripled over the decades. It's around 14% today. However, the share of global trade in RMB is only 4%. So there's this big disparity that Beijing wants to reconcile. If China can settle more or less of the trade in RMB, or at least in bilateral currencies, it will blunt the effects of global sanctions. Even if they get cut away from the global financial system, trade to and from China can still continue. Now, what does Saudi Arabia get in exchange? Simple, the future of renewable energy and technology, courtesy of China. The latest example of this is China Energy signing a $1 billion solar deal. They are building a solar power plant directly in Saudi Arabia. It's not the first and won't be the last. Saudi Arabia signed over $4 billion worth of renewable power deals with China because that's where the technology is. Selling oil from Chinese RMB is a no-brainer. The dollar being weaponized just makes things even easier for MBS to justify the shift. De-dollarization is a one-way street and there's simply no turning back. And this is where we must talk about the BRICS and their new payment system. Russia's the chair of the bloc and Putin's big plan is very simple here. Create a new financial platform, a new payment system that is independent outside of the West.
Вместе с зарубежными партнерами будем наращивать применение национальных валют во внешнеторговых расчетах, повышать безопасность и эффективность таких операций. В том числе по линии БРИКС прорабатывается формирование независимой платежной системы, не подверженной политическому давлению, злоупотреблениями и внешнему санкционному вмешательству.
And now we have further confirmation of this being on the agenda this October during the summit. The BRICS countries, they're going to present instruments for mutual settlement of trade in Kazan. It's all about the decentralization of payments, exploring ways to break away from SWIFT. There are two parts of the discussion we must focus on. The entire BRICS payment system consists of two separate parts and we must be clear about those. The first is the actual payment system itself, or what we call the rails, and these are projects like the China-led mBridge payment system. Countries like Saudi Arabia, they're joining it as an alternative platform to settle transactions. Now, this sounds complicated, but it actually isn't that complex. It uses blockchain technology to record transactions, and because it is a private ledger, only the participants know who's behind the trade. The US Treasury can't trace who bought what or who sold what. Only the two parties will know the exchange being made, which means sanctions will become very hard to impose and justify. And a big shout out to our sponsor today, Indigo Precious Metals. When it comes to buying gold and silver, I trust Indigo Precious Metals in Singapore. They have made investing in precious metals safe, fast, easy, and simple for both small and large scale buying. I've been stacking gold for over a decade now, and I've learned two things when buying. You want to buy authentic gold bullion, and you want to buy it at the lowest premium possible to stretch your dollars even further. And I'm glad to say I found both of this at Indigo Precious Metals. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world today. We have geopolitical chaos and the values of fiat currencies getting debased. Inflation is not gonna end, and that's why I consistently buy gold to preserve my wealth. Indigo Precious Metals is a leading retailer in Singapore. They specialize in physical gold, silver, and platinum. They are my one-stop shop when it comes to buying bullion. Their prices are sharp, and they have the best brands on sale, and I can test the gold on the spot. So if you're looking to make your first gold purchase, Indigo Precious Metals is the best place to start. Whether it's 1 ounce or 1 kilo, this is the reputable dealer you are looking for. So take action today. Click on the link below and enjoy a discount on your first purchase with the code SeanFu. Start your gold stacking journey today. Now we all know sanctions don't work, even Trump knows that. Which is quite weird if you consider tariffs, they are a form of sanctions as well.
If we lost the dollar as the world currency, I think that would be the equivalent of losing a war. That would make us a third world country, and we can't let it happen. So I use sanctions very powerfully against countries that deserve it, and then I take them off. Because look, you're losing Iran, you're losing Russia. China is out there trying to get their currency to be the dominant currency, as you know better than anybody. All of these things are happening. You're losing so many countries because there's so much conflict with all of these countries that you're going to lose that, and we can't lose that. So
the system itself, whether it's mBridge or new BRICS platform, the idea is just to turn bilateral trade into one big gigantic black box. Countries can settle in currencies they choose, including dollars and euros. The end goal here is simply to ensure trade doesn't stop. The US simply can't come along and pull the plug on SWIFT and your economy collapses. But here's the juicy part. BRICS is also looking to develop their own payment currency or unit between member countries. The unit of account could be backed by a mixture of gold and a basket of national currencies of the BRICS. 40% pegged to the value of gold and the remaining 60% to a bunch of currencies like the rupee, ruble, or China's RMB. More importantly, the unit can be converted into any national currency and maybe even to gold. And this makes it a more convenient and liquid instrument to trade with. If a common trading unit can be made, this is a game changer. It changes everything. It could be as groundbreaking as the euro but with fewer downsides. It will be based on a real store of value and not just on individual economies. And this will make trade much easier between the BRICS countries. And let's take Russia's payment struggle in their oil trade for example. India is one of Russia's biggest customers. They sold a ton of oil to India, but there's a big problem getting all the money out. India bought over $3 billion in fossil fuels, including oil and gas, last month. However, they paid mainly in their local currency, the Indian rupee. While Russia can easily move oil volumes to India, their money is essentially stuck in rupees for the most part. Now, this is not ideal for Putin. You want your trade to be liquid. You want to immediately get the funds you need to import whatever you want from any other country out there. The rupee, however, is not fully convertible. Sure, the money can be invested into projects in India and buy Indian exports, but Russia's trade with China is much bigger. A lot of money is just sitting in accounts doing very little. And that's why a BRICS currency pegged to gold and a basket of currencies is so important. BRICS members they can trade amongst themselves without the big fear of getting stuck in one single currency. And if they don't trust each other's currency, they can simply swap the unit of account for gold. There's a reason why the BRICS countries they're wrapping up their purchase of gold. It's probably not just to store their wealth. They could be preparing for something really big. Even Russia, despite fighting a war, is allocating nearly $2 billion to buy gold and foreign currencies. And that's over $90 million of gold buying every day for a month. So all eyes will be on the upcoming BRICS summit. While there's a horde of new members joining, it's better to focus on the upcoming payment system. The BRICS pegging their currency to gold is a direct threat to the US dollar. It guarantees more financial stability versus the endless spending from Congress. Even the Federal Reserve admits the US can no longer return to any system backed by gold. The US mines a lot of gold, but we are not the biggest producer. The biggest producers of gold would have more control over our monetary policy, and this is straight from the Federal Reserve. A gold standard is impossible for the US all because of geopolitics. They don't want Russia or China to influence the US economy. America can't go back to gold anymore. So don't expect the US to be happy with a BRICS currency. It's a direct challenge to the world reserve currency. And if things go crazy, we could expect a global trade war from Trump. However, this won't help the dollar, it will just doom it instead. It will push the world even closer to BRICS and alternatives like gold. But let me know what you think. Will Saudi Arabia sell oil for the RMB? And will Donald Trump really tariff the whole world? Let me know in the comments below. Stay safe, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe as we navigate through these crazy times.